Coming up next on the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast.
Being naive and being ignorant can sometimes be a beautiful thing because you don't know what's coming down the line. I have the burden of knowledge now to know how hard it is.
From your first dollar to your first million, welcome to the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast, presented by ZenMaid. Join your host, Stephanie Pipkin, founder of Serene Clean, as she shares proven tips, tricks, and hard-earned lessons. Whether you're just starting out or ready to scale, get ready to discover how to build your own cleaning empire. Let's roll up our sleeves and dive in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast. And I am super excited about our guest today, Simone, all the way from Australia. And she has a fascinating journey, a fascinating business, especially to me. And I have a million questions. But first, Simone, thank you for your time. And how about you just start out? Tell us about your history. You have a really interesting backstory and very motivational, may I say so.
Thank you. Yeah, amazing. Thanks so much for having me, Stephanie. I've been looking forward to today. So my business, House Mom, is almost 5 years old. I started it in January of 2020 as a single mom of 5 at the time. And basically, I just wanted to bring or create a service that could come in and do so much more than just cleaning, because I understood as a busy mum that, you know, there's so much more to running a household than just bathrooms, kitchen, floors, dusting, you know, all the general cleaning. There's what about, you know, folding, washing and doing dishes and just supporting busy families with those extra tasks. So, and that's what I did. I grew very quickly and still here almost 5 years later with a beautiful team and continuing to grow.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we actually have fairly similar, I guess, timelines. If I started in April of 2019, so you being 2020, right?
Yes.
We have similar aged businesses. And
yes.
I'm curious what time of year, because obviously with COVID was going full blast then. Tell me about that, because I know what that was like for me as a new business owner. Was that terrifying?
It was. So I started it in January of that year. And so it was only by March, things were sort of really ramping up and it became quite real here in Australia. And so it was, I just had those thoughts like, what have I done? Like, what a time to start a business, but actually it seemed to work well in my favor because the borders were closed. So there was no international students getting in to the country, which a lot of people do usually rely on international students for cleaning services. So people were reaching out to me because they needed someone to help. And then I was also getting people coming to work for me because they were losing jobs in their industry because they were shutting down. So I had people coming from the beauty industry or hospitality and things like that. And so it did work well in my favor, if I say so.
Yeah, that's similar to us, especially because we offer commercial services. A lot of the businesses that were deemed essential needed a bunch of that. And then everybody was working from home and losing their minds because their kids were also at home going through school. So we were in the right industry, I think, to go through COVID for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely worked out well for that anyway. But so very grateful.
And it's interesting to hear like you basically lost competition. I'd never thought of that aspect of it with the closed borders. Like that's very interesting to hear. And even though I'm sure a lot of people were kind of trying to do the same thing, opening, like I need more money. So like opening cleaning businesses, it's such a low barrier to entry. So sometimes there's a lot of like low quality competition, I find. So
even when I started the business, I was worried about that because I thought, man, there's just every person starting their own version of some kind of cleaning service. And I thought, why am I different? But then I quickly realized, which we'll probably get into more, it's the difference between someone who says they can do something and someone that actually does what they say they're going to do.
Oh, absolutely. Just that integrity. And, even for us, that's like literally one of the core values of Serene Clean is integrity in doing what you say you're going to do and really doing right by everybody to the best of your ability in every situation, and using that as kind of your North Star of should I be doing this thing or is this the right path for the business? And sometimes, obviously we all make a ton of mistakes, but if you try to come at it from, am I doing the right thing? Like usually you can't get led too far astray. So
no, that's exactly right. I try and approach it too as how would I appreciate being treated or things like that. And, having been, we've all been customers essentially at one point or another in different industries as well. So we know what we would expect in a service. And so just making sure you're delivering that for people.
Yeah, and that just kind of brings me to like such a big core aspect of your business is catering to mothers for a workplace and having that flexibility. And I so relate to that because that is the majority of my staff. Well, we're 90% women. We've always been that, if not more. And the majority being mothers. And that was honestly the only benefit I could offer in the beginning was extreme flexibility, because I couldn't offer high pay. I couldn't offer any actual benefits, PTO, that type of thing, or health insurance. But what I could offer is you do not need to work a typical schedule. You don't need to give me 40 hours. It's just what is sustainable and what's going to work for you as a mother. And so obviously that's, coming from 5 children, like that blows my mind. And I've got so many questions on how you actually did that.
and that's the thing is, like, I again, having been in a workplace before and not having that flexibility, I just understood what it meant to have that flexibility in the workplace and to be able to offer that to people. It blows their minds when I have an interview with people and my questions are, when are you available? And, what would your ideal schedule look like and things like that? Because they're like, no, well, I'm used to being told when I have to go to work and what days I have to be there. And I say I schedule differently because I actually schedule clients around your availability.
And that it gives you longevity and it gives you access to a workforce that otherwise you would never tap into, because people think that, because they're not available the expected number of hours, 40 or whatever, then they're not going to be a high quality employee. When I look at some of my best staff members I have some, I can think of one off the top of my head. She's been with me for over, I think 3, almost 4 years. And she has worked for me for 20 hours a week. She had she has her son. She went through a divorce, both of her parents going through extreme health situations. And then her caring for her father, like through hospice. And like, her name's Ashley, and she stands out so strongly to me in this of like, she is who I created this workforce for, of like, if I could clone her, I'd be a bajillionaire, because she's so good, such a good heart. And it's like, I would never have had her if I had been a stickler of this is what you need to work. And so I just, having more part-timers, like I would rather, there's a fuzzy, I would much rather have, 10 part-timers than 5 full-timers. Absolutely.
I agree with you completely. So, and it creates more loyalty, and they really value what they have because they know that what we've created is not something they can just get anywhere else.
Absolutely. And just really leaning into that as like, for us, family first is another core value. And so the thing is, who we're serving is also who our company is made out of. So it's so easy to make those connections with your clients because you're them, you're the avatar, not me personally, but you are.
I mean, I have to tell you this story. When I started the business, my youngest was still not in school yet. He was only in kindy, which is like a 2-day-a-week situation. And so when I would go and meet new clients, he would come with me on the days he wasn't at kindy. And so I thought some people would be so limited. They'd think, I can't do it. I've got my little one with me, can't do it. And I'm like, no, because I'm showing people that we're a family-friendly business and this is who you're getting when you're booking with House Mom. So I'd show up at the door and a lot of people would say to me, make sure you bring Harry along if you need to. And he did that year. If I needed to go to work and clean houses, he was coming with me.
Well, and, you were basically filtering before you even took on the client and saying if they weren't okay with that, they're not going to probably be a good fit for you.
That's exactly right.
And that's amazing. And that was one of my initial questions of, if you had children who were not of school age, what were you doing with them during that first year? Because that is where, whenever I talk to new owners and they're also parents, that is the struggle, especially if they're a single parent. Like, how do I provide the consistency and showing up? Because that is one of the biggest selling points. I actually just saw one of your reels that was talking about like showing up. And so when you're the primary caregiver, something falls through, like being honest and communicating that, but also how do you give the client what they pay for? It's a big struggle. Did you ever have that, or did you just brought him with every time that would happen?
So he would come with me on the days that he wasn't in kindy, on those 2 days. So, which is great. I was lucky that I had clients that were fine with it. But I also didn't take very long to start hiring people because I knew that the end goal is for me to be managing a business, and I can't do that when I'm working with clients. So that was only the first 12 months. And then, you know, obviously he's off at school now, but I also don't work with clients anymore because I just don't have time. I've got to be managing the business. So, but yeah, I think, and the key is also not to take on too much, because some people just think, I've got to jam in and say yes to everybody. And that's when you start to fall apart. I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I had to learn very quickly that doing that, trying to say yes and people please to everybody meant that that's where things come undone. So just making sure that you're keeping a bit of wiggle room in there in case things happen.
Yeah. And I think it's such a struggle, especially, you know, we're trying to make money. We're trying to make a living and support ourselves and our families. And so it's so tempting to say yes to everything. It really is, because you're like, you see that money right there. And even if it's not a good fit, and I definitely made that I'm actually not allowed to like talk or pick up the phone or anything. My managers will like pry the phone out of my hands because they'll be cleaning gutters. We literally were painting interiors of apartments on move outs one time because Stephanie picked up the phone. It's like, what are you doing?
We can do that.
Yeah, we can. No problem. So there was like, it was for turnover cleans for an apartment management company. And they're like, well, we really want it to be all in one, where it's the cleaner. And then if they have to touch up paint, then they can do that too. We don't want to have different service providers. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, no problem. We can totally paint. And of course, then I have my cleaners just absolutely irate. Like, why are we being asked to do this? So we don't do that anymore. But it's really tempting. It's so tempting to try to be the jack of all trades and serve everybody. And you can make a lot of poor decisions when it's just the money. And I get it. Like, we're trying to make a living, but gosh, you gotta be smart about it and think long term.
Definitely thinking long term and realizing that everybody you turn away is leaving space for your ideal client. So get comfortable with saying no and be really, have those clear boundaries. I created an avatar of who my ideal client is, and that makes it so much easier than when people come through and they're messaging or contacting us. Do they fit this criteria?
Yes.
And if they're not, then here's a list of people we recommend who might be able to help you.
Yeah. And just having that clarity of, like an avatar of who is my ideal and likely buyer. And obviously, if you have different service types, we do residential and commercial, vacation rentals, having one for each of those categories. Get out of here, Kat. You're going to be all over my computer. And sticking to it and saying, okay, does this match long term? And it's a strategy. You're just being more strategic and more controlled, as opposed to just kind of chaotic and willy-nilly, for sure. Definitely. So that's
especially
really,
because we mainly work with ongoing clients, so weekly are our main clients, and so I'm trying to build that long-lasting relationship. If I'm saying yes to the wrong client, then they're either not going to stay long term, or my team aren't going to be happy there, or they're going to give me trouble, and so then I will just hate every time we have to go there. So it's just better off to just move them along.
Yeah. And if your cleaners are dreading it, and also like you described, it's an opportunity cost of, I see it as, okay, this 4-hour time slot is being charged this much, and they're a pain in the butt to deal with. We could drop them, or they could cancel, and then we can immediately fill it with a higher paying, easier to deal with client who loves our cleaners. So it's kind of, it feels painful because I think we all have that scarcity mindset and that desperation, especially in the beginning, because they're like, I can't lose a client. But every single client that is left because of price, we have replaced with higher paying, and like they'll come. If your branding and marketing is there, they're going to come.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's reassuring. I think the more that happens, you get more and more confident, and you just know that, oh, it's okay. Someone else will fill that spot. Like, you don't even feel sad when they leave anymore.
Yeah. And even, you're just more confident. And it's not to say like you should, not care about losing clients, depending on, it's all why are they leaving, and making sure you're figuring that out. But if it may be for legitimate reasons, and for me, it's always kind of almost having, like, if possible, an exit interview with a client of like, tell me everything. And obviously that's part of the whole, are you checking and touching base with them often? And, even just ZenMaid releasing the service rating features recently has really helped us keep a pulse on those regular clients, because we're really good at hitting those first times and nailing it in that first month of service. But then, the little things can kind of slip by and slip through the cracks. So I've definitely been really appreciating that feature that they released. So I guess I'm super duper intrigued by the training, the aspect of these services that you're providing are so bespoke, niche. How do you scale that? How do you I just even, teaching them the organizing, that's something I've even struggled with. Of a lot of clients ask for organizing service. I'm like, how do you train somebody to organize? You just know or you don't, it feels like.
That's exactly right. And to be honest, with those sorts of things, I don't train in because I don't organize myself. I hire people to do that. So in that case, things like ironing, I don't train in that. And when I put out job ads, I ask them what are their specialties. So then I know when I'm pairing people, so I'm pairing a home assistant to a client, are they able to be a good match because they've got the same skills that they're looking for. So if someone wants ironing, but this person doesn't iron, well, then I can say, well, they tick all of these boxes, but they don't iron. Would you like to, book that home assistant, or would you like to continue waiting for someone who will tick all the boxes? So those are what I call a specialty skill. They get trained in all of the general cleaning and presentation of a home. But as far as those specialty skills, they have that unique skill set within themselves.
I see. So would you say that having a wait list is something that very often happens as they're waiting for a particular person?
I have a waiting list. So it's not necessarily just because they're waiting for a particular person. It could just be because it's an area we don't service yet, or, we just don't have staff available in that area at the moment. So I don't like to rush hiring just because we have a waiting list. I'm always told a waiting list is a good problem to have. And then that also gives you that confidence. Again, if people move on, well, then, you've got that waiting list to fill. But we check in with them often to make sure that they're still happy to wait, or if they've found someone else, we still touch base with them even if we do have someone available. So we can say, are you happy with the service you booked with, or would you like to try us?
And I think that's something that especially newer owners or less experienced owners are really scared of, is having a wait list. They see it as a negative, or that those people are not going to wait. The exclusivity feeling that gives of you are in high demand, and they don't need to know why you have a wait list. You always frame it as, we're so popular and people want us, as opposed to I'm struggling so badly with hiring right now. They don't need to know that.
That's fine. We'll just keep that to ourselves.
And that's really a lot of times is so much about acting confident even when you're not, and portraying a sense of I've got this to the client. And this is something we try to teach our cleaners too, especially when they're newer and they're nervous. It's like just act confident and keep that internalized, because the client is sensing your body language. They are gauging if you are trustworthy, and they can relax and give you their home over by the way you're acting. So it's so crucial that you do not seem like you don't know what you're doing.
Yes.
And even when booking, it's the same thing of, I find almost being quite authoritative of this is what we're going to do for you. This is what we can provide, and really taking charge, because I find especially, when we're dealing with overworked, just losing their mind moms, that mental load, if we can just take that off the shoulders of them and say, hey, we got this, and this is all what we're going to do for you. They will gladly pay extra because they feel so relieved. It is a relief.
Some people present far too many options, or they come in a little bit nervous, and they're like, well, what would you like to do? What do you want us to do? I still ask, on our booking call, what would really make their day, how would they, feel most supported in their home. But at the end of the day, when we go in there, we just give them, A or B, get it right down, and just give them very clear options on how to actually give them what they're wanting.
Yeah. And I think that reduces the analysis paralysis and, another decision for them to make, because this is the whole thing, is we're trying to reduce decision fatigue on their end. And you said, giving them a million options, or kind of having them build a bear the cleaning. It's no, this is what we do. And, even for us, we follow one standard checklist, and our cleaning checklist is most people's deep cleans, so that my cleaners are trained at a super, we do everything every time. and we're not a wipe down service, and we don't offer a basic package. It's not even something we offer because you can go find somebody else to do that. That's not, what we sell on. And I don't want my cleaners getting in the habit of leaving things off. Even if the client asks for it, I still don't want to do it because that teaches the cleaners like, oh, sometimes we don't do this. We don't do this. It's like, nope, every time we to the nines,
And I think that's important too, is being really confident in your niche so that you're not accepting those basic cleans if that's not what you feel comfortable doing. So, me, I'm very comfortable knowing that we're a luxury housekeeping service, not a basic cleaning service. And so if someone says, well, I just want cleaning, I said, well, we're not the service for you. And you just have to be very comfortable and stay in your lane, I guess, so that you're not just saying yes to everything.
So for the listeners who aren't familiar with the services that you do offer that are not the typical cleaning services, can you list those off?
Absolutely. So luxury housekeeping is essentially having another mum in the household. So we'll come in and we'll do all the general cleaning, we'll do tidying, we'll do organizing, we'll fold washing, we'll change linen, we'll put a meal on in your slow cooker or prepare some meals in advance. So all of those extra jobs that would really, when people are rushing out the door in the morning and knowing that they come home and their house is essentially reset and they haven't had to do anything, that's what we do.
So just the scaling of even like the meal side of it. I mean, I would imagine your intake process is very, very robust compared, because how could it has to be. You have no choice but to just have this massive kind of intake, which I know sometimes, again, feels like it would be overwhelming to the client. But what that's doing is showing like, hey, we're going to customize this and it's going to be exactly for your family. So even that, like, you note down food preferences, you like all of that, I assume?
All of that. So I get all of that information in my initial booking call, and then they'll be matched with the home assistant. The home assistant then goes out and also meets with them, and so they can have that conversation about likes and dislikes. And we have a slow cooker menu, so they'll get sent that when they book in, but then the home assistant might have her own recipes that she likes to make, and so they know that's the starting point, and then the home assistant then can build on that from there based on their skills.
Okay. I see. Yeah. So I would imagine that turnover is much more painful for you than the typical cleaning company owner because it's so highly specialized. Like that's gotta hurt. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. But again, because I'm hiring mums and our job ads are very, very specific, we're getting more and more people just sending us job applications without even having job ads because they hear what we do and they might see, our service and they go, I want to work for that company because I want to just do that stuff. And so because a lot of people now are booking us and they have cleaners separate to us. So we're not even doing any cleaning. We're just doing all the, the presentation and the meal prep and running errands and things like that. And so that's why they're booking us. And so people are like, I want to do that as a job.
Yeah, no kidding. It sounds like you get the right people because you're so highly specific with what, again, that filtering on the front end, and only getting applicants who make sense, only getting clients that make sense for you. So then on the back end, you're not dealing with a lot of drama and unnecessary pain because you chose the right people.
Yes, absolutely. And making sure those values, everything is spoken about in that initial interview. So I can filter people out pretty quickly, whether it's interviewing a new staff member or whether that's doing a booking call with a new client. That's not okay, we've had a call now, we're immediately booking you. That's my filter as well. Are we the right service for you? And I even say that at the beginning of the call. By the end of this call, we'll know if we're the right fit for each other.
So how do you charge hourly? Is it a la carte or how do you do that?
We do an hourly rate and we do that because it's so specific. So if they book 4 hours, then we know, okay, well, what are we going to do in that 4 hours for you? It's not, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this and keep repeating that. It's what are we doing today? And that requires my team to be able to be proactive and see what needs to be done by getting into a good routine.
Yeah, the what is the priority list? And we charge hourly as well, which a lot of cleaning companies or even gurus in the space, like they think you're dumb for charging hourly. And there are negatives, but there's definitely a lot of positives, especially we have a ton of limited hour clients because they're on a budget and they want us to rotate tasks every time, or rotate rooms, not tasks necessarily, but rooms. And so it gives them the freedom to say, this month do this, you know, biweekly do this. And if they were on a flat rate model, it would be a little bit more challenging, I think, to sell them.
Absolutely. I think that's I think that's the difference between a flat rate model and an hourly. Is the flat rate model businesses are generally rinse repeat. They're doing the exact same thing every time. Whereas if you want to create a more flexible, personalized approach, an hourly is obviously what's going to suit that better. I always tell our clients, it's like a choose your own adventure. Like, what do you want? What do you want done today?
No, it really is. And one of the biggest skills that I see, a lack sometimes in applicants, but that make the employees I have that shine the most are the ones who can critically think and who can come into a space, analyze what is going on and what needs to be done, how much time to give things. And it sounds like for you guys as well, that would be a huge skill set. Absolutely. Is like that critical thinking. Critical thinking,
and I say sometimes even just common sense, because so many people don't have common sense, and I can't train it, unfortunately. I wish I could, but common sense to come in and actually work out, like, what is the priorities today? What I just cleaned that. You know, we have a lot of clients booking us 5 days a week, so why on earth would you be doing the same thing where you're just, I just did that yesterday. Like, you've actually got to go in and see what needs to be done.
Wow. That's a luxury. Wow. I'm just thinking of a 5 day a week account. Like, I'm from a very, very rural area. So that type of like financial leverage is definitely not something that is very common in our area. Even weekly that is quite the luxury expense for a lot of people in our area. So it's pretty amazing that you have the marketplace for that. Like that's awesome.
I think it also comes down to mindset as well, because it's I hear so many people. I work with a lot of people in the cleaning industry because I also consult, and a lot of them are saying, no one can afford me, and people are just canceling on me, and times are tough, or whatever they're saying. And I'm like, well, that's because you're telling yourself that story.
Yes.
Like when you start telling yourself a different story, I say, we used to have a lot of fortnightly clients, and now we pretty much don't have them at all. And they are the ones that were canceling on us. Whereas we've got people now booking us 5 days a week, and you're telling me that times are tough. Like, there is enough money in the world, and you just need to get it funneled to you.
Well, and it's so true. And that's where like the very specific brand imaging, and I just see so much branding out there that's cheapening their brand, and that's how people are going to interpret them. It's also going to like limit the amount you can charge. And if you are selling on being quote unquote affordable, or even that concept of affordability is so malleable. And it's like what I think is affordable versus what she thinks is affordable are two different things, because in the same day I have been cussed out for how much I charge, and then the next call will be, oh, this is so affordable, like I can't, like, let's book. So it's like, well, who's right? Neither. So don't keep that in mind. It's just you are able to set your quality, and it should speak for itself that like, hey, we're not for everybody. It is a luxury service, and there is a marketplace for
it. And at the end of the day, we have bills to pay. And if you are not charging the correct amount for what you're doing, then your business is not going to last very long anyway. So it's so important to be having that, be very clear on what you need to be charging before you even get to want to be charging, because otherwise you're not going to last very long.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when I started at $30 per man hour, obviously USD. And I remember thinking to myself, nobody's going to pay that. Like, I'm crazy. Like nobody's going to pay that. And now, we're double that, and we still got a wait list. So I wish I had started so much higher, but I didn't, because I would never have paid that amount as broke 22-year-old Stephanie. I assumed that the rest of the world had that same frame of reference, and that's so not true.
No, absolutely. And the thing is too, it's sometimes other people get in your head. When I started the business, I was also very low rate. I think I was $38 an hour, and we're more than double that now. And so it is, one of my very close friends said to me, no one will ever pay you that. That's very expensive. If I had have listened to her, then, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So it's very important to be making sure you're not listening to people, because at the end of the day, they're not the ones paying your bills. So.
Correct. Yep. And I think, it's just that overabundance of information, and the internet's a beautiful thing. Obviously, we're having this conversation, but there's a lot of voices out there, and people can get drowned in the information and then don't take any action. So obviously I'm not saying go in blind, but there is some gut instinct, and sometimes you just got to go for it, try it and adjust, because even when it comes to pricing, okay, you lost your butt on that job. We'll learn from it and adjust. It's not the end of the world. It's just, okay, or I need to pay more, or whatever have you. And even that, like, you want to pay as high as possible. We all know that. But that, like, the only way to pay high is to charge high. And the only way to charge high is to have super high quality, and just emphasizing that to your staff. Like,
yes,
I tell them all the time, it's like, I'm hard on you. Like, we're super picky, because that's why you have these giant Christmas bonuses. That's why you get paid, all of these things. And so connecting the quality to their paycheck, and also obviously pride in the work, of course, but it is a job, and we want to make sure that people are taken care of financially, because that's why you and I both started the business, is financial freedom.
That's exactly right. And I say to the team as well, like, always be looking after those clients. Like, so many people, when they apply, why did you apply? Well, I need a job. That's not the right attitude. Like, I'm looking for people who actually care about what they're doing as well, because money is money. We all need it. We can't get around that, but you have to actually care about delivering a good service as well, so people feel like they're paying for a service that's quality.
Yeah, and I definitely I have so many hiring mistakes, that I've gone through a lot of employees over the past 5 years, and that's always going to be probably the limiting factor for most companies that obviously marketing and branding, once you get that on lock, honestly, it does itself. It sometimes feels like when you get enough reviews, when you get enough word of mouth, it's kind of just this churning machine, and it takes care of itself. But the employees, it's like, gosh, that can be challenging. And, not even having the core values spelled out and hiring based on that. Even I've had excellent cleaners who they hate kids, and that didn't come out until months in. And it's like, well, all of your clients are stay-at-home moms, or busy moms, and the house is going to be a mess sometimes. Like, they did their best to pick up, but the cleaner's coming back and just griping about them not picking up, or the kids did this, or blah blah blah. And it's like, ooh, like, this is a value, like, mismatch here. Like, this isn't, like, I don't care how good of a cleaner you are skill wise. It's, if you can't stand this aspect, like, this is a core aspect of the business. So I can think of several examples of that. So I'm curious if do any horror stories stand out for you from the employee side? I mean, any like really big mistakes you've made? I'm sure. I mean, I have some that I can't even share on the
I mean, my first biggest mistake was that I didn't have contracts when I first started the business. I didn't have contracts for the first 2 years, which was a massive mistake. Obviously, when you start a business, you don't have the money usually to be putting into things like that, because that costs a little bit to get that drafted up correctly. And so so I had employees, when they left, they'd steal my clients. They'd start doing clients on the side, doing other services for those clients that were with me. Those sneaky little things, or that was my biggest problem in the beginning. So once I got those contracts in place, it made a big difference. And again, just getting that hiring right, because even me getting clearer on my own business values, now that when I'm hiring, the job ads that go out are so much clearer than what they used to be, so that I know people who are hiring, then they fill out an application form before I even decide if I want to interview them, and that filters. It's always about filtering and making sure that you're not wasting your time just talking to anybody.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, do you have employees or independent contractors?
Both. Yeah.
Both. Oh, interesting. How do you, I have all employees. Obviously, I've talked to people who have had all contractors, and there's a time and place for both. So how do you utilize and blend?
So I started doing that April last year. So it's been about 18 months. Up until that point, I only had employees. But what happened was when people were leaving and I would have this scramble of, what am I doing? Or if someone was calling in sick, and then I'd always be cancelling these clients. So what I did was I actually reached out to other cleaning businesses who aligned with my values. And so they look after house mom clients on our behalf now. So it's about, I think I doubled essentially my revenue by working with these other cleaning businesses, because I'd see them advertise on community groups and they'd be like, I've got these availabilities, and I'd be like, why, how do you have availabilities? Let me help you with that. Let me fill that. And so I pay them what their rate is. So whatever they charge private clients, that's what I pay them. And then that way that also creates that loyalty, because there's no reason for them to go around me, because what's the benefit that I'm sending them clients and they're getting regular work from me.
That is so smart. And I'm sure a lot of listeners just tightened up at the thought of like contacting competitors and how scary that may seem. And I think obviously it can be done when done correctly. And as you just described, the strategy is to make sure there is no benefit to going around you. And that's going to come down to finances, obviously respect, treating them well, so that they have no need to steal the client or attempt to do anything like that. So, have you had any situations where because what I could see is the client trying to solicit in that manner, because they're like, hey, like I can pay you less than what I'm paying Simone and you're still going to make it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It hasn't happened yet. Well, it has been attempted to happen, but they always come to me and say, just letting you know this happened. And then again, it comes down to working with the right people. I don't have an interview with them, but I always meet them for coffee. So we meet up, we chat about their business, we chat about their business goals. Like I want them to know you're not an employee, because you're not. I'm here to support your business growth. And so that's how that works. And they really appreciate that. Like I get Christmas gifts from them, which is so lovely, because they appreciate that I'm sending them regular work. And without that, then they'd have to go and find their own clients. So again, that creates that loyalty, and they shut that down with the client, because they're like, no, actually, because I really like working with Simone. And if they start going around me, I'm not sending them any more work.
Yeah. It kind of governs itself. That is a really amazing strategy. And like you said, because that's really what it is. It's a strategy to grow. It's a strategy to offer consistency, because, as we grow, I have a team of, 30 now. It's every day somebody's calling out. Every day. If not, I've had up to 4 or 5 in one day. And it's like, oh my gosh, when it rains, it pours. And so our strategy for that is we've always made sure we never book ourselves full. So we have buffer. And that's another benefit to having the part-timers, I find, is they're okay with, if it's just this range of hours, like, I only got 20 this week, I'm good with up to 30. It doesn't matter to them. So if somebody calls in, we can put it on them, and that works. But now we've finally been able to afford a full-time, on-call person who's also my quality assurance and then my lead trainer. So she, wears a lot of hats, but 5 years in, we're finally able to do that. And that's something I would have killed for in the first year, and unfortunately independent contracting, it's still, there's really not that many companies or people who even I think would be open to that. So I'm kind of wrapping my brain and like tossing in my head of like, how would that work? I'd be worried about quality. That would be my
I do a lot of research on that business. So it's not like I'm contacting them and going, let's just have a chat. I'm doing my research. What are their reviews on their business? What do their before and after photos look like? All of those sorts of things. Yeah. And then when I'm chatting with them initially, it's usually an email or a Facebook message or something to start that initial contact. I introduce myself. I say I'm a local business owner. I'd love to chat with you. And I feel them out. Like, what are their values? Why are they doing their business? But they are the most reliable because it is their business. And so when I have people calling in sick from my team, I just send out a text to all of the businesses that we work with saying, who's free and can fit in this client. So it's like a substitute teacher situation almost. And they just, one of them picks it up. And we let our clients know that we work with independent contractors now to help fill those gaps. And I say, this is for you. Again, it's all in the wording. It is for them. How you approach things with your clients, they will have confidence if you're confident about that decision. And so by us saying this is giving you more reliability and consistency in your service, it may not be identical to your regular home assistant, but we're still going to give you a service so that you're getting what you're wanting.
And you just made such an excellent point that I hope everybody listens to, is that communication and how you verbalize what the thing is you're trying to accomplish and saying it as a benefit to the client. And anytime we make a policy change, anytime, even we've reduced certain services or eliminated certain aspects of services. For example, like we just took out laundry other than for vacation rentals. And that's for, our strategy of scaling what we do. And again, trying to focus more on the commercial side, and just having enough situations where I'm like, I don't want to, we're not getting into laundry at scale. So I'm just taking it out completely. And it's all in the phrasing of, if you're taking something away, make sure you are able to provide something like in its place, meaning additional value, better training, whatever, what have you. And so, cause that's something even just when our cleaners call in, we have that in each client's notes of if their cleaners calls in, would they prefer to skip and wait for that cleaner, or are they okay with a replacement or these particular people? And we literally have that in the ZenMaid notes for our management so that we know at a glance, who can we send, or can we send anybody at all? Because some clients are like, nope, I only want Sally. Don't send me anybody else and I'll wait for Sally.
You get to know those ones though, don't you? Others are just like, send me anyone. And others are like, no.
Yes.
Yeah.
So have you had any client horror stories? I'd be curious, any that come to mind when it comes to really anything behavior wise or just attitudes. I mean, it's funny because some of the cheapest people I've had have been the most nasty I've found, or most disrespectful. So have you noticed that is lowered, or do you feel it's really at every single income level, if you will?
It's definitely more so at the lower income level because they expect the world for nothing. Whereas I find the higher income bracket, they seem to understand that a lot of them work in business, so they do respect that. However, that doesn't, there are still some in that bracket that I have had to part ways with, one very, very recently. But when these things happen, it gives me a chance to review my policies, and I'm always just wondering where did something go wrong? So this particular person booked us 5 days a week. I hired someone specifically for her, and then it was very strange. So our initial contact was she was given all the information, all the pricing, and I was speaking with her assistant. We'd had our booking call. Everything was great. Midweek of her first week with us, so by the Wednesday, her assistant emailed again asking the pricing, and I'm like, this is interesting, you've been given pricing, but hey, here it is again. Then Friday came, and she that afternoon phoned the home assistant she was booked with and said, it's too expensive, don't want to pay it, but I want to book you directly. And this person who she'd only been with me 2 weeks, this is a recent, I'm talking a last 2 weeks ago story. And she phoned me immediately and said, I just want to let you know this happened. It's very awkward for me. I did let her know, I work for Simone. I'm loyal to House Mom. I'm like, wonderful. Only been with me 2 weeks and she already knew
you
that.
chose right.
Obviously it's in my contract, but the fact that she respected that and respected me. So that just gave me a chance to review my policies, and our new service agreement for 2025 includes a no solicitation policy, because we are specifically now, especially for our more high-end clients booking us multi-times a week, we're hiring specific for that client. So if I've done that, it felt like she was almost using me as an employment agency to find and vet someone and send her a really good person. And then it was like, okay, thank you, I'll take that person. I'm like, no, that's not how this works. I am not a recruiter.
We have that in our policies, our client guidelines that they sign is basically they'll be charged a $2,500 training fee, or however we have it listed if they attempt to do that. And have we ever actually done it? No, usually it's a slap on the wrist, and just typically we're going to get rid of that client immediately because I don't trust them.
I don't trust them. No, it's like I wouldn't want to work with you again. And the hardest thing for me in that situation was she's a woman in business, this client. And I just thought, how can you do that to another woman in business? Like,
ruthless.
it just felt so wrong to me. I'm like, that's not my values. So I'm like, good, you sorted yourself out quickly. So you don't always get it right. But it was a good lesson to learn and a review of policies for the new year.
Yeah. And really, for everybody, it's these are living, breathing documents. All right. You don't just one and done client policies. You don't just one and done employee documents. Literally, we add a dozen or so more, change a dozen every single year, and adding every year of, this needs to be changed. And one of the biggest lessons I want people to learn is that when something goes wrong, like, stop and pause and say, okay, how could we prevent this in the future? And that's really what systematizing is like, when problems arise, when the burning fires come to you, then take a moment and say, how could I prevent this in the future? Is it a policy? Is it firing somebody maybe? Is it, a communication error? Because for us, when I remember we had call-ins and then we'd send somebody else thinking, well, we're doing right by the client. And then they're irate because it's not the cleaner they expected, and it startled them. And so, light bulb, going forward, anytime we have to make a schedule change, over communicate that, because you can never go wrong with too much communication.
No, exactly right. They appreciate it. Even the ones that are, they're going to be fine with it, but they value the communication. And if a client ever says to me that wasn't communicated, I'm like, let's look at this. Like, why wasn't that done? Because communication for me is so important, because we know that we appreciate it. So, just keeping people updated, doing what we say we're going to do. They really value that.
Oh, yeah. And it makes it so easy to stand out, because people are so used to service-based companies and all flavors, plumbers, electricians, whoever, not even calling back, not communicating, just frankly, terrible service. So if you can just be so good at that you communicate, you do what you say you're going to do, I mean, charging what you want to charge will not be an issue.
No, like, I have so many calls with clients. One stood out in particular very recently, and when she picked up the phone and we started speaking, she was said to me, I'm so impressed that you actually phoned when you said you were going to phone. I'm like, it's so basic, and people just don't understand that those little things are actually a big thing. And that's what makes you stand out amongst everywhere else. When we are in an industry that is saturated, all you've got to do is just do those little things to make an impression, and people will just love you. It's not hard. Especially when you're a smaller outfit, or you're, if you're listening and you just started out, or you're just thinking about starting out, these are the things that can make you stand out against the competition. If you have a high competition area, just do these things excellently. Communicate well, be extremely professional, spell out what exactly services you're going to perform. For us, we've always done a checklist we leave behind. And so they know what to expect and what they're getting. And honestly, like, the patience, I know, like, you had kind of a quick growth, as did I. So do you have any, comments on being patient, or just, because I struggle with that, and everything's gone very quickly. So I'm curious if you have any wisdom. Well, I think the thing is people don't want to make that move on hiring, because they're like, I can't afford it. And I actually had a conversation with a friend last night. She owns a carpet cleaning business, and she's a few years into it now. And I was saying, Naomi, if you don't start thinking about, or start hiring, even if it's just one day a week, and you then focusing on things that only you can do, because people get so scared to hire, thinking they can't afford it. But when are you ever going to be able to grow if you don't make time for it? And so I just think, for me, the secret was just hiring fast. Like, don't even think about, I'm going to be in this forever. My plan was never to be working in the business forever. It was start hiring and growing my business.
Yeah. And, if you are terrified of it, listen, like, I always keep in mind that every single person is going to leave eventually. They're either going to die or they're going to quit. Right. So like keeping that in mind of I have shed so many tears over employees, especially in that first year of I can't believe they left. Literally, so, and even my first person I ever hired because I was running out of my 2-bedroom apartment. She ghosted me. And then my second one tried to game the ZenMaid app by clocking in, sitting in the driveway for 4 hours, and then clocking out and leaving the house. So that was my first 2 experiences. And then 100% churn rate. And I started in April of 2019, and I hired my first person in June, 2 months later. So it was the same thing of like, I had my full-time job. There was no way I could even, and I never intended it to be like this, of course. Nobody ever plans, I think, that to happen. But I certainly knew I wanted at least a couple part-timers, and for me not to be cleaning. And that, yes, I'm here to manage. And though I'm sure both of us are excellent cleaners, I could clean the pants off anybody. Our value and purpose in the world is not to be just a cleaner. And I don't say that in a derogatory term, because it's a wonder, like it is a beautiful skill, and people do not respect it enough, because to do that well, it is laborious, it's hard, and that attention to detail, time management, it's such a skill. And I'm preaching to the choir. I don't need to tell anybody who's listening that, but I still have a chip on my shoulder. People could be like really disrespectful to our industry. And that's another reason I just love to elevate what we do and shine. If you go to our social media, our website, it's just plastered with my staff and adoring them, because they are intelligent, hardworking, wonderful people. And, cleaning has been seen as just this, thing that's beneath. And so,
and I think, but I take pride in what we do, because I know someone's day is a little bit better because we've been there. They're coming home, they've had a busy day running around with the kids or being at work, getting yelled at by their boss, whatever their situation is. They come home and they feel better because we've been there. And I really instill that in my team. I want them to feel pride in what they do. It's also a reason why we changed so I've never called my team cleaners. They used to be called housekeepers, but at the beginning of this year, I changed that to home assistant, because we are coming in and assisting you in your home in whatever way you need. And so just that change in itself really boosted my team's morale. They were like, I'm a home assistant. So knowing that they can call themselves that and be referred to as that. And with my clients, I always make sure that they know their name, because I don't like them just saying the cleaner. Sometimes they'll still say cleaner, and I'll say your home assistant, Kylie, will be looking after you, or whatever it is. And just making sure they know that's a person.
Absolutely. And teaching and correcting gently is never a bad thing. Again, like, it's okay to speak your mind in a respectful way, and always keeping it as professional as possible. I know, especially in the beginning, just when people would be disrespectful or would do me wrong, either on the employee or the client side, it was so hard to bite the tongue. It especially when they're just doing you so dirty.
Oh, yes.
But I will say some of my biggest regrets in the business is not taking that step back to breathe and just absolute professionalism. And that at the end of the day, when you look back at that situation, you can stand on your high horse and say, I handled it the best way I could.
We have to remember we are professionals and we are employers as well. So just being mindful of, how we're speaking to people, whether that is a client or a staff member, because I try and live by that motto. I don't want to burn bridges, because you never know what's around the corner. So I always wish people well. If people move on or they do the wrong thing by me, I still wish them well, because you just never know what's around the corner. And I'd prefer to protect my business and my reputation rather than fly off the handle and vent for, something that won't even matter in a week or 6 weeks, whatever it is.
Well, yeah, and I think that's one of the best skills that I personally have developed over the years of business ownership is absolute acceptance of a situation immediately. Because frankly, bitching or whining about it is not going to change anything. And all it's going to do is delay your ability to get to the problem solving. And having that be a skill and something I look for employees of, we take accountability, and that starts at the top. So when myself or one of my 4 managers make a mistake, we share it with the team, even if it's embarrassing, because it's one, it makes us seem like human and that we're not arrogant or see ourselves above, because we all started as cleaners. And I never want it to feel like a gap. But 2, it encourages them to say, the cleaners to we call them cleaning technicians, I suppose, my staff to to say, oh, like they fessed up when they messed up, then I can do that too. Because then it's more of a collaborative thing of this is the problem and how can we tackle this problem together, as opposed to like, you did this and point the finger. So just the faster I could get over even like cleaners leaving and like I said, like tears and just hysterics from me of how could they do this to me?
That
and it's not
first year
fair.
was rough.
Yeah.
The fact that we're both still here, we were determined. But I was exactly the same. I spent that first 12 months a lot of time crying because people didn't share my values and I was hiring the wrong people. And now that's changed so much because I never just accepted something. I know you just said acceptance, but it's more about I always self-reflect, I guess. I always say, well, where was my part in that? What did I do that could have been done differently or do better next time? Always learn from your mistakes and don't just sit there and blame everybody else because you always have a part in it. And so I think that's a very big key to success in business is, we're going to cry about it. That happens. But I don't cry anymore because I just know now, right, what do I need to fix? Let's just fix this and move on.
What's the action? And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, something's wrong with the training procedures that I created or I did not hire correctly. And when you take that, everything is my fault, it's actually quite freeing of like, okay, then I've got power.
Because when control.
I'm in control because when you blame other people, you're taking the power away from you to do something. And so when I say, you know what, our training sucks. This past year has been about revamping training. Not that our training sucked, but there was so many discrepancies as we continue to push and scale of, okay, why is this person making these mistakes? This should be getting covered in training or, they have I'll give you some examples. Like they weren't getting adequately trained on deep cleaning tasks like ovens, fridges. So then 6 months down the road, when they got assigned to a move out cleaning, they're like, they've only done an oven once and they totally screwed up. We get a complaint and it's so easy to say, hey, cleaner, what's wrong with you? Like, why did you do that wrong? And it's absolutely, they saw that once 6 months ago. Of course, they don't know how to clean an oven properly and
refreshed. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Even if because we look after a lot of ongoing clients, sometimes with my team, they'll go and do a new client because maybe someone's moved on. And so they've got a new client. And I always tag them because we have lots of training videos. I'll tag them the day before in the video on a first service and how to nail it because I'll be like, it's been a while. Here's a refresher. Make sure you watch this before tomorrow, because it's about keeping that information fresh. If we're not doing something regularly, of course we're going to lose that skill. So you've got to keep that up to date.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, logistically speaking, because obviously you have such customization for each home. How are you getting obviously ZenMaid notes, all of that. When I think of our most unique accounts, it's going to be commercial. And so for us, we literally do a video walkthrough at every facility. And then we create a custom checklist and then also take videos of anything like a paper towel holder that's hard to open. We'll take a video of that. So are you doing any of those strategies in people's homes? Like how do you train on that house?
So we actually use Google Docs for our client notes. Okay. We use ZenMaid notes for more on the day information. So if there's something, clients left a key out today and they don't normally do that. So here's that information. Okay. Our Google Docs are what our home assistants keep up to date after every service. So if they ever move on or someone else has to fill in for them, we just literally share those docs with someone else and they're picking up that information, reading past services. I used to be a dental assistant before, getting into business. And so that a lot of that was very note heavy. Like we, sometimes it was 6 months before we saw a patient again and we relied on those notes. So that for me was everything went in there of clients taking a holiday or they got a new dog and all of those things so that when you see them again, you can remember that information. So that I applied that principle to this as well so that my team know they don't have to remember that information because they're seeing a lot of people every week. It's nice for them to just brain dump and then they know, all right, next time when I come, I'll refresh that and pick right back up where I left off.
I love that. And that's actually part of our daily morning reminders that go out to all staff members is update your client notes as if somebody had to fill in for you. And that's really created this very team atmosphere, even though we do individual cleaners. We're not sending teams very rarely. First times, of course, when they're so large, but we run individual cleaners. And so what that has done is if you had to go into another a house blind, what would you want to know about that? Because obviously we can all say a house is a house, but to be successful in this house, it's like, hey, here's the pets' names. This door is tricky. Make sure you get this basement bathroom. It's hard to find, like all of those things to set up your coworkers for success. And then obviously for the business, that makes it when somebody leaves or has to leave, then we can really seamlessly provide the same perfection basically to the client, and the client doesn't feel so much pain because turnover is going to happen, and the clients don't like it. They don't like it, but anything we can do to ease that transition from staff member to staff member is going to make, and even, we this week we had a kind of a complaint, I suppose, of we had switched cleaning technicians on a client because her cleaner changed her availability. She dropped her availability down, and she had been with this cleaner for a couple years. Amber is my cleaner, and the client, we had sent a new technician, another great technician, and she'd been there multiple times, and both Amber and Haley, the new cleaner, had requested off that specific cleaning date of the next rotation because it's Christmas. Christmas is coming up, right? This is literally, this just happened this time. And we got an angry email of like, I don't appreciate that, I can't, and we had sent her an email saying, we'll be sending this person because these two people requested off. And she was and we said, if you want to have one of these two specific people who you like, then you'll have to wait till this day. And she didn't want to do that because she was having company. So, but she didn't want a different cleaner. And so it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And then of course she had some complaints that she hadn't been sharing for the past 3 cleanings.
It all just comes up.
It did. It was word vomit, and they like to do that. And this is something that with women, especially, I find it's going to be, sometimes they wait until they have this pile of little tiny things, and then it just explodes. And so asking them for that feedback all the time and say the smallest things. Tell us the little minutia, because I'd rather have every note possible and give you what you want, because you are paying a high price. You should get what you want, but you need to tell us.
Yes. I mentioned that on their onboarding call as well, just to let them know, like, communication is key. We'll communicate with you. We expect the same in return, because we're not mind readers. So if you've got someone and they're doing something because that's how they've been trained, but you like it a specific way, actually don't do that for me. That's okay. We're happy to leave that off, but we go autopilot that first time to just give you a house mom experience. And then from there we can tweak it, but we can't tweak it unless you tell us. So my team actually send follow-up texts after each service that comes directly from them, so that they know that they've got that home assistant contact. If they've got a question, they can ask them, because they used to come through me or my admin team, and then it would be, well, now I've got to go and ask that person, and then we've got to get back and relay the information back and forth. But we just send those check-ins after each service, update them on anything they might need to know about their service that day, and we find that really helps.
It'll help with retention too, because they feel heard, they feel seen, and any little misses or frustrations are just nipped in the bud. And most people are very happy then, because it's like, wow, they actually care, like caring and doing that follow-up makes such an impact. So, well, now that I've been taking up your time, I'm curious, what is the next year? I mean, I could talk to you for like 4 more hours.
I know, I'm enjoying this.
I know you do. I've got so many questions. So, looking towards the 2025, obviously we're coming up on the new year. Like, do you have any specific goals or visions that you're trying to obtain?
Well, my plan is to be Australia-wide by the end of next year. And so I've just started a Gold Coast team. I've got 3 people down there now. So I'm now learning to train remotely, which is kind of cool. And I'm hiring people that I may not ever meet for a long time. And then I've just got a client on my waiting list down in Melbourne now. So a whole different state, which is really cool. So that's not a January problem, but a January task for me, I guess you could say. And that's just going to help get me closer and closer to being Australia-wide.
That's amazing. And I one of my favorite little flexes is like I get to meet employees for the first time at like the Christmas party, because I don't do the hiring or the firing, and I'm like, oh, nice to meet you finally.
Yeah, I know. Or like, I'm like, oh, sorry, who are you? Like, or like in your head, you're just thinking, I don't know who you are. But I'm sorry, but hey.
I got to pull the pictures before I actually like see a group, because I'm like, okay, who's who? But again,
but Christmas parties are hard because everyone's dressed up really, and then I'm like, oh no, I don't recognize.
Yeah, I got to like check my little like folder of photos, like, hey.
Yeah. So between that, and obviously I've got a training academy as well. So just helping people grow their cleaning businesses, and that for me is my two big goals for next year, is just to keep growing and adding value and helping people be successful in what they do.
That's amazing. And it's just so cool to talk to people who are in it, who have accomplished a lot, but are still wanting to do so much more, because the goalpost always moves, and it may move in a direction you totally don't think it is. And I think it's the whole, just like as you grow, you don't know what problems you're going to face. You also don't know what your goal is going to be, because 5 years ago, when I hit $7,000 a month, I was like, that's it, we're done. This is the top. And now it's like, okay, $130 a month. And I'm like, okay, now what? Like, it's like, it changes your brain. It really does. And,
and
it's
you're
really
then
exciting.
Open to possibilities then, because you start to realize, before when we talked about we're in control, I also love to see that we're in control of creating our own wealth as well. And that's something we shouldn't apologize for or be, feeling bad about. It's actually quite exciting to know that that's within our power and we can do with it what we want.
No, it really is. And the impact that we can make because of that. And even, like, that's why I wanted to get into the whole content thing, because I'm like, okay, I have all these things in my head that could help other people. And just like you, it's the same thing. And that's connecting. And business ownership can feel so lonely. I mentioned this in our intro episode, and it's really cool that now, because of the internet, because of, Facebook groups and community and creating community, we can feel less alone and also learn from others' mistakes and hopefully avoid them. But sometimes you got to touch the hot pan to and get burned into yourself.
Well, I want to know though, what are your business goals for 2025?
It's so 2024 has all about been about internal, I guess, focus. So revamping training, creating a really robust orientation process, having our quality control system basically be psychotically perfect, and having our cleaners check each other, and just this high focus on quality and really nailing that. Obviously, we've been taking on clients, but we have not we have done pretty much no advertising or attempting to get clients. So I think really pushing for the perfect commercial accounts and more of them is going to be our big goals. So we're looking, like 3 to 5 nights a week. It's pretty much your version of your ideal, except in commercial form. And no late night, daytime or early afternoon, early evening at the latest. And just, being like super specific of, this is our perfect account, because we can nail it for them every time, and we can staff it, and the money is excellent, and the consistency. So that's been a big thing. And then obviously for myself, just being super involved with ZenMaid, it's kind of been my, even internally with their design processes and new features, and kind of having my fingers in that pot has been really exciting. And so, it's pushed me to do better in Serene Clean, is being involved with ZenMaid, because I'm like, oh, there's so much work to be done. Like I'm working more honestly now, and it's been so life-giving. I'm like, I want to work. I want to do this thing.
I think it's when you're spending time on things that you actually enjoy as well. So that's not really, it doesn't feel like work when you just,
it doesn't. When you wake up excited to get to it, and I know a lot of people listening are like, oh, it must be nice, but you'll get, everybody will get there. It's just, you got to get through the trenches, as I call it, which is that first year. And sometimes it can extend much longer than that, but the goal is to dig yourself out of that hole.
And a lot of lessons are learned in that year. And that's the difference again between our business and maybe somebody else that started at the same time, because a lot of people don't survive that first year because it's hard. It is, it takes a lot of grit, a lot of determination, and a lot of tears. And it's whether or not you come out the other side.
It's so true. And I look back at that year of work and I don't know how I did it. I don't think I could do it again because I know how hard it is now. Being naive and ignorant can sometimes be a beautiful thing because you don't know what's coming down the line. Where I have the burden of knowledge now to know how hard it is.
That's exactly right. Yeah. But at least we can share that with people and just obviously give that reassurance that we've all been there. But it does get better. And as long as you're always self-reflecting and reviewing your policies, then you'll only get better.
Mm-hmm. And be willing to take the risk that is hiring because you're never going to get anywhere near your potential without it. You have to.
No, absolutely. I feel like that could be a part 2 here because you're nearly leading me on to like the next thing.
Oh, trust me, I could. Yes, well, this part 2 will be coming. That's for sure. Because I can talk to you all day. So, where can everybody find you? Facebook, website, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've got the House Mom website and Facebook. So it's just always House Mom or at House Mom Home Services. Otherwise, you can look me up, Simone Angell. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm always happy to chat with people if anyone wants to reach out.
Okay, awesome. Well, Simone, I hope we can talk again because this has been really insightful and I appreciate your time. And
thank you.
We'll definitely be talking again, but we'll wrap it up there, I suppose. And thank you to everybody for listening to this episode of Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.